This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Tray T.S. Deadwyler, and we're going to talk to you today about mindful life, mindful leadership. So welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing fine. We're
Yeah.
actually in the great state of New Hampshire,
Okay.
and we're talking here on our podcast. We've been out here since 2016, and we're at, I think we're at episode 1197.
Oh, man, that's good. That's good. That's
We've
good.
been out in the world for a while, but we're going to
Mhm.
talk to you about, like I said, mindful life, mindful leadership, and what your definitions of a mindful life and mindful leadership are. So
Sure.
maybe we're going to start there or start before there.
We can start wherever you like. We could start. If we start there, I would easily, simply say that it starts off with presence. Everything starts off with presence, and most of the time in my work and if you observe life, people are spending a lot more time not being where their feet are. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Right?
Yeah,
And they're thinking about too much stuff in the future, or dwelling on too much stuff in the past. And so
yeah,
they spend more time elsewhere than where
where
they
they are.
should be, yeah, where they are. And so that's the start of everything. And so most of my work is rooted in that space of basically starting off with presence, then having that mindfulness and that awareness and that attentiveness about what's going on within you as well as what's going on around you, that starts everything else, and it will actually change and mold and move based upon where you are in that moment.
So that come out of your book, The Contemplative Morning, or does that come before that?
That came a little bit before that. So the Contemplative Morning really started as a text group. I started sending out text messages to friends after I would do my meditation in the morning. I'm still an early riser, so back in 2016, I started just texting folks something encouraging, something to contemplate that morning, something to hopefully inspire. And it started to grow, and people started to add, hey, can we get added to this? And it kept growing and kept growing. And so I stopped sending out those messages around 2023. And so you can imagine thousands of messages over that particular time. And we distill those down to, in this version, it's only about 40 meditations in there, and some action steps and some things to reflect upon. And that's where it starts. So, but it came from a mindfulness practice to create the book, which now hopefully leads others to a mindful practice.
That's interesting because I'm a Buddhist. Just to kind of give my background,
Oh,
and the whole
okay.
idea
Okay.
about Buddhism is kind of being present, and
Absolutely.
also the mindfulness is like to
Yeah,
actually be aware of what's going on inside and outside in
absolutely.
the universe, and then
Absolutely.
realizing how much power you have to
Absolutely.
actually self-actualize.
Indeed.
Or like
Indeed.
in terms
Indeed.
of chanting, like if you have a positive mindset
Mhm.
and you
Mhm.
chant for the positive rather than saying,
Mhm.
"I can't do this, it's
Mhm.
never gonna happen,"
Yeah,
that you're likely to actually hit that goal
for sure.
rather than be in the endless loop of never hitting it.
You're absolutely so it's kinda like, "Yeah, I can't do it," or I can do it," or "I can't do it." Either way, you're gonna be absolutely right. And those are the things that we also we express that. So you talked about in that space of, one of the key elements of really being of mindfulness itself is choice. As much as folks don't want to hear that, sometimes that they can exercise choice in moments, because some people feel they don't have a choice, and I have to respond this way, I have to have that emotion, I have to have that feeling, it's supposed to be that way. But it's also, a lot of times it's because that's the automatic response. It is
Yeah,
now, it's so subconscious that
yeah,
people are like moving so
subconscious.
fast.
What it rules, like your 95% of your brain is running on a subconscious track,
Right. But
and
that,
until you understand how to access it and
absolutely.
actually influence it,
Yeah,
you're on like an autopilot and you don't
absolutely.
realize how much you can like I'm a coder, I'm a system designer.
Yeah, yeah.
So in systems, I can wipe the slate clean and change the whole foundational structure or
Mhm.
program, reprogram it to be something else. Well, your brain can do the same thing.
Same thing, same
Yeah.
thing.
But people
But
don't believe they can do it.
well, it's and so again, they're gonna be right. And so, it starts with it being really attentive, being really, I mean, that attentiveness to what's happening within you and how you're seeing the world, and what's going on physically, in those modes. It's talk about awareness, not only about, I, I'll say it this way. uh, the awareness part is interesting because I have a quote or phrase I use, just some things I say a lot of times. It's a presupposition, really. And
Mhm.
it's the lens that you use to see the world will also tell you how you experience it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that awareness of what lens am I using at this particular moment to see this experience, it's also telling me how the heck I'm going to feel it.
Well, it's like the frame. Like if you're a
Yeah,
director, I've
absolutely.
talked to a
Right.
bunch of film directors,
Yeah,
like
right.
how they actually, you know, frame that
Hmm.
camera or they
Hmm.
frame that scene. Well, they can frame
Absolutely.
that scene tons of different ways.
Absolutely.
And they
Absolutely.
might have had one idea what it should be, and then they go in post production and say, "No, I want to change it." So
No.
there's like
Yeah.
they can reframe things this off the cuff, like
And
some.
that's where that choice comes in, right? Once you realize, oh, I can have various different frames, and actually being able to change your perceptual position, really change your perception so that you can, like, oh, okay, I could reframe and see at least from the other person's perspective, or at least where the other group is coming from.
Yeah,
Those are pieces that are there. I think the other part, um, that I talk a lot about, is really about not disassociating, but disidentifying with certain behaviors, or even our thinking, really our thoughts and our emotions. And those are the things that get people hung up as well, because as you just said, people will say things so quickly and won't listen to, like, I am insert emotion here.
yeah.
And
Or
it's
they
like,
don't even listen to themselves.
not listening at all. So you start to embody that particular emotion. No, don't do that. You only have emotions. You're experiencing the feeling. You have the thoughts. You can also cast them out, right? If
Yeah.
you become the thought, which is could be a good thing depending on where you want it to be.
What situational awareness? You have to kind of
Absolutely.
know what stage you're on, right?
There it is.
As a musician, like you know what crowd you're in.
Yes,
If
yes.
what the crowd
How long
wants.
do I take this riff? You're like, how long do I keep it going?
Yeah.
Watch,
Like the
watch.
comedian. The
Yeah,
comedian
correct.
knows when something's bombing, right? And they don't keep
If
on
it's
bombing.
bombing, you need to move. You
They
need to
don't
move
keep on
on.
bombing unless they want to
Yeah.
be off stage.
As a matter of fact, you acknowledge, hey, I don't think that's working. I don't care. And then you move on, right? So you acknowledge, hey, this is something that is happening and I don't think I like it. It's like that's how we have to work within our mind. We have to start recognizing these patterns, or at least when something is shifted, so
Yeah.
that, okay, now we can move on to the next place.
Yeah, because a
Yep.
lot of times, like a musician, like if you're at modal jazz and somebody changes the key and you didn't expect it, or you'll be like Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis. Herbie changed the chord. Miles just went with it.
Just go.
You just
Just
go
go.
with it. But like you get a classical musician in with Chopin and you didn't do what was on the page,
Hmm.
boom, you're done. You got to start from the beginning.
Absolutely.
It's a
Absolutely.
different mindset.
Yeah, it's so that's why we use a lot of times in my work, we talk about, uh are you a sailor? Do you have you boat at all?
Nah, I never did
Not
that.
so
I
much.
probably should, but I
Yeah,
actually
I
went
think,
with some friends jet skiing a couple of times, but I don't own a
oh,
boat.
love it, love it. But it's kind of using, life as basically like this vast ocean that we have really no idea what's really happening. You don't know when the wave is coming. You can have an idea. You don't know how deep it is certain places, but you're just on a boat. You are traveling in this vast deep blue. And I started thinking about that. That's how life. That's just how life is. You are just moving with the waves, right?
Yeah, or Moby
But
Dick, like you're going after the whale.
yeah. And and that's so you got to figure out, like, what at some way, the values that you have is going to be your sales, right? What's basically taking you one place to the other. That's going to be what you really have a focus on. What you really believe. All those things are matters. All those things matter. Like how you are you going to move with the wind? What's with your motivation, or are you going to move against the wind? It's going to be it's going to be a problem. So I think about that a lot of times when
Like
we're
judo,
trying to
like
piece these.
mental judo. Are you gonna
Yeah,
be able to kind of take that, redirect it,
yeah,
or is it gonna let it crush you? Are you gonna
yes,
let it crush you or let it like take that master judo? It's like, hey, they flip that force.
Yep.
and now that person's on their ass.
And, and if people can figure that out, how do you move from this is happening to me to what can I do or what's possible for me? That can shift everything.
It's a big
Because
shift. It's a paradigm shift.
absolutely, that shift in perspective, that shift in paradigm goes from everything is happening to me to what can I do to affect everything.
Well, yeah, or
Right.
even like the idea, like in this world, it's like we got global massive shifts. We're in this new
Hmm.
age of like the
Hmm.
AI, automation,
Yeah.
robotic age. So
Yeah.
everybody said, "Well, I'm gonna be out of a job. I'm not gonna be able to compete against the robots. I can't compete against the AI." But it's like you gotta understand, human beings are still the masters of this world.
For sure.
If you believe, it's like there's like in music, people felt like, "Whoa, all this automation, all these tools, all these samplers gonna get rid of live musicians."
Hmm.
People
Hmm.
still want live musicians. People
Absolutely.
people don't want an AI actor.
Nope.
They want to see a real actor.
Absolutely.
They don't want, yeah, maybe in the background, but they don't want that to be the lead.
No, we still don't want the what was the Will Smith's movie? We don't want iRobot coming out there with a guitar.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
not,
They
not
they
gonna
can
happen.
do it, but
Yeah.
are you going to really pay for that? Do you
Like,
want that?
not a thing for us.
Yeah, I don't think you really want that.
Yeah.
But so that's what you have to value your uniqueness. And I think we live in a world where people want to clone. See, everybody wants that cat video. But
Yeah.
how many cat videos are there?
Yeah.
Like, what it would be, it's harder to actually do the video that's like you
Hmm.
than to clone the thing that's hitting the algorithm.
Hmm.
Because like you don't have any history with the thing that's not in the algorithm yet.
Indeed. Indeed.
So then you're like, oh, like it's not hidden.
I
Well,
gotta.
it's
Yeah.
new.
Yeah.
It's new.
It's
It's like
it's
it's not
it's
gonna.
and people are. I think you get into. Oh, that's so good. I think you get into this place again where you um that copycat is basically what people will call the that hypnotic rhythm. So since it's everyone else is doing it, I need to jump on that bandwagon a little bit.
Yeah.
I think about that from a thinking standpoint and how people move through their world. It's not a lot of original thought. All right. It's not a lot of original, thinking at all. Which also means it's not a lot of original feeling and true feeling. It's sometimes a lot of times it's copycat from what other people are feeling.
Yeah, it gets stagnant.
And it
Then you
gets
get the sameness. You get people that disengage
yep,
because they don't feel motivated because
yep,
it feels like it's on somebody's phoning it in.
yeah,
When
yeah.
you get music, a lot of people treat music like it's elevator music in the background.
Mm,
But I'm
mhm.
listening to I was listening to Funkadelic, like I
Okay.
was listening to Tear the Roof Off, right?
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
That
Okay.
does that's not something that's in the background. Like,
Mm-mm,
I'm not
mm-mm.
listening to that and then trying to do a detailed algorithm at work,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
actually
Yes.
have to be involved.
How do you clip it?
Yeah. It's
How
like,
do you clip that?
you gotta clip that to make it
Yeah,
so it's elevator music, whether it's not
for
really
sure.
much of that, it's gonna clip
For
good.
sure. You would literally you would have to flatten it in such a way. You would probably have to keep it. You definitely would have to change some of the keys. You would have to change the key, flatten it in some particular, simplified in such a way that it just feels like terrible elevator music, but
Yeah.
also with a higher BP.
Yeah, or you turn it into white noise so I can fall asleep like I'm asleep going to bed with
That could work too.
my ocean machine.
Yeah, that could
Right?
definitely work too. That could definitely work too. So
It's like
yeah.
that's what people really want. Do they really want to turn everything into their atmospheric music machine so they can go to bed?
Well,
Maybe.
sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you think about it. If everyone's so many folks are in the hypnotic rhythm, like my son talks about the non-playing character and being not you're trying to make sure. And talk about. I was telling him, it's like you don't want to be that. You want to be the main character of your story, right? You don't want to be the person that's just basically just doing what everyone else is doing and has no interaction with the world. You are definitely the main character of your story. So make sure that you are if you're going to be the protagonist, You need a signature. You need a strategy for life. You need to know what makes you heroic. You need to make sure that you're always moving in a brave, with a brave and courageous way.
You gotta not have fear of failure, because failure is how you actually
sure,
live in the world, right?
you have to have not necessarily, it's a willingness to learn, and so that's the way we frame it. It's every time you fail, it's like, oh, you just figure out how that's not how it happens, or that's not how we do
that's
it.
like, I look at people and they say, they feel like they failed, but a lot of times it's a happy accident. Like if I go to work, right, and I'm in a software session, right, we're in a whiteboard session, and we've got the plan of what we're supposed to build.
Yep.
But a happy accident happens, and we end up building something that wasn't in the plan, right?
Oh yeah.
But what wasn't in the plan is actually better than what was in the plan.
For sure.
Then you like when you have a really good organization, your management sees is like, hey, these guys came up with something in the lab that's better than what we were doing. And they actually go and change gears and actually support that. But if you have the organization I leave is an organization, every time they see that, they say, no, it wasn't in the plan. Just go back to the plan, put that under the ground. Then I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in the outer edges of the bell curve where you're trying something.
Yep.
Because that's where I like to live. Like some people don't have risk tolerance for that. They can't handle it. So like I don't tend to hang with people like that.
That unfortunately is the majority of individuals. We understand that bell curve of basically being risk averse. It's for a lot of folks, and that's I think it's totally okay, because we understand that most of us are seeking comfort. Matter of fact, all of us are seeking comfort in some particular way, right? And it's so because of that, we, when things get uncomfortable, we may retreat a little bit, and we stay like, what's comfortable for me right now? And but that being comfortable can lead them into being complacent, and that's where people, okay. And it's not even a contentment, because they still a little disgruntled where they are.
Like you could be satisfied with your discomfort, because it's like being in a a bad relationship, being in a toxic environment, but it's what you know. Right? So you're going to get paid, and your boss is toxic, but you get that paycheck every Friday.
Absolutely.
So you're willing to deal with it because you don't know what would happen if you left.
And that's
that scares you more than the codependency or toxicity that you're in.
Yeah. The possibility, or the possibility / the unknown has more fear attached to it than what we know. Even what we know, what we currently believe also, and the comfort that we have. And do I step out or not? Oh, so you know what? The way a lot of times I think about it, this goes back to like being present. I look at it like, as you're moving through the world, it's just like the deep blue, but on the ground, you think about it, it's like it's completely dark, and you have a torch. Imagine that, right? You have a torch, you're holding the torch. This is my little torch for the day. But you have a torch, and if you've ever walked with a lantern or a torch, you don't see everything. You only see a small circumference around you. Yeah. And it gives you enough to take a step to the left, step forward, step back, to the left or to the right, right? But also in the distance is where you're going to be going. So imagine it like a lighthouse, right? You know where you're going. You can see where it is, but you can only see the next couple of steps. You can only see the next, but you can also take your butt the other way.
You go backward, yeah.
But that's totally okay. But you have to be okay with taking the next steps. One of the other things about being really mindful as a leader is taking the next step. And sometimes we need to know all the steps
before you can do it.
Before we can do it, because that feels safe a lot of times, and that's totally okay. But what plan has gone off exactly?
It never does. Well,
Never does. Right? Everything has to iterate. So and so as that torch, as you're moving through that terrain, there's rocks, there's sticks, there's rivers, there's whatever it may be. There's animals that may get you into a detour, and so be okay with holding and taking some steps little by little, because you're growing your strength as you move forward.
yeah.
In that distance and so on. So. That's kind of
Because
the
it's
thing.
like you as an athlete, you learn all your different, you learn the 3-point shot, you learn defensive move,
Yep,
offensive move,
yep.
but you have to be able to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody throws something that you didn't expect, that you didn't train for, the really good athlete doesn't get that's like suddenly deer in the headlights. They're not deer in the headlight. They're able to be like a jazz musician,
Right.
hit that other note like Miles. Right,
Yes.
Kirby hit the different chord. I hit the different. It's like, oh, it could be discordant for a slight second, but then it goes off in the right. It's like, oh, we evolved the song, we
Yes.
evolved the play, because now
Yes.
you learn something different. It's like, oh, it can happen like that. Doesn't totally throw me off. It's like I can roll with it. I
Yes.
can
Yep.
react. I know I got a toolbox, all these things,
Yes.
and I got, oh, this thing didn't happen. Is that going to throw your whole game off?
Uh-huh.
And there's some people that does throw the whole
It
game.
totally throws them off.
They can't recover the rest of the game.
Right. So we have to be really nimble. We have to be malleable. And that's those elements of resilience as well. Like you have to be able to be, okay, what's in my toolbox? I haven't dealt with something like this before, but I have some other tools that something similar, right? And you start to pull up, okay, or even what's a moment where I've actually had a hard some significant challenge very similar to that.
Mhm.
What I tell a lot of times my leaders is like, hey, pull that back up, pull that memory, pull that moment where you really triumphed, and see what can happen from there. Because you can actually invoke some of that same strength, that same emotion that you had, those moments where it really pushed you beyond where you thought you can go. You can bring that back to thought and back to mind, and that could actually catapult you for the adventure that you're actually dealing with right now. So
Yeah,
that's
instead of
another
the
thing.
wolf at the door triggering you to get into a bad loop.
Uh-huh.
Because like a lot of
Absolutely.
times you get all these virtual wolves at the door,
Yeah.
and then people are scared to iterate because they want to have like a waterfall known thing. It's like, software development used to be in the waterfall, which is like we had to know everything.
Yeah.
But now we're in the iterative agile age where like on your cell phone, every day you see your apps updating.
Mm-hmm.
Because like yesterday we didn't know X, but now we know it. Right.
For sure.
So we actually put an update to fix it, but we still have things that are unknowns.
Yes.
So every day the software is never done until we totally decide that this platform doesn't work. Well, a lot of times these platforms can work for like a year before we actually change the structure. And so we keep on iteratively doing it until we say, hey, the structure can't actually do it. So we have to do a foundational structural change.
Flip it up. Yeah.
And I think in your life, you can do that. Like sometimes you need to do a structural change. Other times you just need to do a tweak.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But you have to be aware of like that looking glass self is like, hey, you actually need a structural change.
Well,
a lot of people don't like that structural change.
here's a tip. Here's a tip for folks. If take a moment and really think about, so I watch behaviors. Every client I work with, every team that we work with, every organization, we look at cultural we look at the culture in a particular way. It's really comes down to how people are moving through the organization, how they're thinking, how they're acting, all of their behaviors. And so at some point you have to notice or keep in mind that everything's a pattern. So if everything is a pattern, what is the pattern where's the pattern taking you? Just keep paying attention. And so going back to the mindfulness, why we have to be present and being attentive, we can start to track, okay, when I do this, this happens. When we do this, this is the outcome. When we take on this is what actually occurs. So at that point, you can actually the outcome, the result, the circumstance that you're actually creating, is it the outcome that you really want? If not, we got to figure out what's happening over here. What are the things that we need to shift? What are the patterns and the behaviors that we need to shift, even if it is a way of thinking? And sometimes that can be a slight change, but as you were saying, also it can be a hard reset.
Yeah.
And
Big
and
change.
and you can have a really big change, and it could be almost an existential crisis, because you start to question who you are. You start to question who you're trying to become. You start to question, what do you want to do? You start to question, how do you want to show up in the world? And that can be, create a little bit of a crisis. But once you get through that crisis and actually you can answer all four of those questions, you find yourself in a lot better place.
Because you could have like a bunch of like truths and beliefs, right?
Oh,
So you
yeah.
have something that's actually like a logical truth and then a
Yep.
belief.
Yep.
Like somebody could have told you that you're never going to be good enough, and you think that's the truth.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
But they actually, it's just a belief that was given to you by a narcissist or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you could actually get out of that. You could reprogram that.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually going to be a foundational structural change to your life,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're probably in all these bad loops. And when you get out of that, you're not going to be in that loop.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in this other phase, which probably gets you close to abundant thinking than the thing that was very restrictive,
Absolutely.
repressive thinking.
Absolutely. If once you're able to think the way you want to think, you're going to be ever powerful, in my opinion. I think that's the challenge, is figure out a way that you can think the way you want to think. So that means you can act the way you want to act. That means you will have the behaviors that'll give you the results that you want. Once you learn how to believe and think the way you need to think, everything shifts.
I think they think that a lot of people, they are looking for this outside stimuli, right?
Yeah,
And I think it's always
sure.
going to be coming. It's coming from the dear
Mm-hmm.
leader. It's coming from
Mm-hmm.
this group. It's coming from their, their social
Some guru.
group. Somebody, some
Yeah.
group. Somebody's giving you the core message.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like back in the day, and the Hare Krishna is like they were giving them the message. There was some moons giving the message.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
Jonestown.
Yeah.
He was
Absolutely.
giving the message. It's like, what message
Absolutely.
was
Yeah.
that? You drink the Kool-Aid.
Trying to pay attention. Yeah.
You found out.
One of the presuppositions I always use to start every talk or even any workshop is that we live, lead, and experience life not from the outside in, but from the inside out. And that gets stuck in a lot of heads. And sometimes, and that's the only thing they heard, like, wait a minute, hold on. What do you mean? I'm telling you, again, it's just, and we keep going through it. It's like, no. You're looking for things outside of you to start. A lot of this has to, and we're talking to leaders, right? Who, a nice little trick question we always ask is, who was the first person you ever led, right? And everyone starts to write down. And I said, if you didn't write your own name down, we need to stop.
Hard stop.
we need to cut it out. You are leading yourself first. And then people, based upon how you lead yourself, how they feel about your lead, how you've led them, basically affects how they will lead others. And so that's just something that people should always keep in mind. You're always, a lot of that stuff is already within you. That's why every good coach really uses more questions than give you answers.
Yeah, because you gotta look inside. It's like that looking glass self. Victorian poets had this idea,
yes,
which is like the mirror self. Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. But it goes back to this idea of the looking glass self.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you have to have that self-examination. It's a hard thing, because when people do the self-examination, they have to be willing to see flaws and not paper over it.
See everything.
You
right?
gotta see
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you gotta see what's good too, because some people never give themselves the credit.
Yeah.
Right. So they never look at the wins. They only look at the losses.
Yep.
So if you're only looking at losses, it's hard to actually have a positive outlook, because you're minimizing the wins.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And those losses become louder in our minds, because it's interesting, and I mean by that, when we think about our thoughts and our memories, they're not associated really with a place, but rather an emotion. right? Psychologically. So when you when you start to look at it, like, oh, okay, so it's going to be loud. Your folder sometimes, if you're not intentional about it, your folder for pain, disappointment, challenge, what you consider failure is
Way bigger.
probably highlighted in your head. And so I'll tell people all the time, hey, don't forget, you need to have a success journal. You need to write something down every single week, at least something that you accomplish every single day when you really overcome something. Because those are the moments which you really like, oh yeah, I have done this. Because you forget you can forget your own competency.
Yeah.
You can
Well, that's
forget.
the thing is they get you out on stage for the TED Talk.
Yes.
You can't be you can't doubt. So like you can't be a doubting Thomas. You can't be the sitting there doubt, doubt, doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And then people say, well, it's arrogant. No, it's not
No,
arrogant.
it's not.
Right? Like
No.
the problem, that's why a lot of people don't step out. They don't
Yeah.
step out to do the TED Talks. They don't step out to play on stage or do
Absolutely.
that play or put that painting in the gallery. It's just sitting in your room,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you never in your loft. You got 100 paintings in your loft. I said, not ready. I'm not ready. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
really?
Yeah.
It's like you gotta take that shot. But
Yeah.
people, they think like the criticism, if they get hit with it, it's so deadly to their ego.
Yep.
Right. So they get that first criticism. It's like, hey, not everybody likes everything. Just because somebody says they don't like it doesn't mean you can't put it out in the world.
Absolutely.
There's always somebody else that will.
Somebody, matter of fact, if you don't, if you don't, one, you risk the chance of someone else doing it. Two, which is also can create a little bit of jealousy, then it can put you in a whole different loop.
Yeah,
But
resentment.
also, how are you going to answer those questions? If you're holding everything that you're supposed to put out, you're just walking around bloated the whole time, right? You're just walking around with all these ideas, all these opportunities all these these new innovative ways of doing things, and you're just holding it. What's going to happen, when you at the end of your lifespan, you can't take that stuff with you. You're gonna put it in a journal. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now we can take it, but you will probably benefit more or enjoy your life a lot more if you can see the ideas come to fruition, right?
Yeah.
But you would see something that you really could, like, you could say, boom, put the flag in the ground. I was able to accomplish this. I did this thing.
And
So
taking the inner and getting it out. And this is kind of what a creative person does.
yeah.
Every musician that, gets beyond the place where people don't want to hear them, like they're learning their instrument.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to hear you learning. Right? But then you
Yeah.
get to the point where you have some mastery, and then people say, "Hey, I don't
Yeah.
mind listening to this guy's sax.
Sure.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not that." But then you yell at them and say, "Shut that! Put it back in the case." It's like, no,
Yeah.
but they want to hear you.
Yeah.
But you have to get to that. You have to do the work, and
Yep.
everybody can understand it like an athlete. Oh, they do the work. It's the
Hmm.
same idea. Like everybody that does anything, it's like they did the 10,000 hours to kind
Yep.
of get to where they
Yep.
are. You didn't see them doing the 10,000
Nope.
hours.
Nope.
And you think they went 0 to 100 and suddenly they're on the net with 1,000,000 views, and they
For
got
sure.
1,000 likes, they got everybody, whatever. It's like, no, it's like people did the work step by step, and like all you see is the last step.
Yep. Yeah. It took 10 years to become an overnight success. Like, yeah, that's how it works. It takes some time. There's some outliers out there, but most of the times, people that you're really seeing, matter of fact, that's another little tidbit from a resilience standpoint. Most of the folks that we see that are really successful just didn't quit.
Yeah, they didn't stop.
They
You know,
just they
how
didn't
many
have
people
the first idea. They didn't have the most innovative idea in the beginning, but they learned how to iterate. They learned how to be mindful of the moment. They were accepting of their reality. They had some the disciplines that kept them moving forward. Then they moved and they just kept going. They kept going while other people were falling behind and quitting. There were some folks that were like, "Hey, I still believe in this." And then they found some other folks that also believed in them as well. And it's like, okay, I'll keep going.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's like
boom.
I was looking at Jimi Hendrix's background, right? He
Mhm.
used to play on the Chitlin circuit. He's playing with Isley Brothers. He's playing with
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Little
yeah, yeah.
Richard. He's playing with all these guys, 65, 66. And he was just doing his thing, playing in these like shows. And, Chad Chandler from the Animals happened to be in a club where he was playing
Love.
and just heard him and said, "This guy is the guy."
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know he was going to be there, but he just kept on, in the Chitlin circuit. He was in the sideman. He was doing the work, and he just loved playing.
Yeah, man.
Tennis would just play everywhere he could play, every opportunity he could play, he got it. And, he would just do it.
That's
And
it.
because he put himself out there, and he was
Mm-hmm.
continually doing and believing that like I should just play.
Yeah. Put your
He
nets
got
out
his,
there.
that's how you do it. It's like
Yeah.
you can't you're playing in your room, the scales in your room isn't gonna cut it. It's like
Right. Right.
you gotta have a Chad Chandler see you because you're actually playing somewhere.
Yeah.
You gotta go out and find whatever opportunity to put yourself in today's world. That means you throw it out on the web.
Yeah. Throw
You
it out
throw
on
it
the
on.
web.
You put it out, like you put it out there somewhere in the ether. And when you put this stuff out there in the ether, people are looking for original things,
Mm-hmm.
no
Mm-hmm.
matter how many things are repetitive
Yep.
and are in the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
There's always some outlier that, if a neurodivergent person that says, "Hey, I don't care. I'm just going to put it
Yep.
out there." It's like, yeah,
Yep.
well, that's how it gets out there.
That's how it works. I need to figure it out. I need to get it out. The main thing, just don't hold it. Throw your nets. Swing the pole. Whatever it needs to do. Throw your bait out there. Get it out there. That's the main thing. It's just, even if it doesn't work, then you're just learning that doesn't work even for that particular audience. There's been some times where, oh wait, this is the good product, but it's not the right product for this audience
Oh
or
yeah,
for this
that
team.
happens all the time.
It happens all the time. It's like, it's just not the right music for this, not the right genre for this particular audience. You got to know the audience, work from there.
It's interesting because, like, I give an example of this kind of music, like the 808 drum machine that's used in hip hop and rap.
Mm-hmm.
Roland built this thing, and they thought that rockers were going to use it.
Really?
The rock bands, they thought the rock bands wanted it, right? They put it out there, and the rockers say, "What's this crap? I use real live drummers. I'm not going to use this," right? So it ended up failing as a product, and then it ended up going into pawn shops and secondary, like, resale shops, and hip hop producers and rappers found it, and they say, "What's this thing?" Right? And they started playing with it, and then it was out of production and got famous after it failed in the market.
Oh, that's
So the
so
808
good.
drum machine failed in the market,
That
but
is so
there's
good.
a whole generation of people found it. Now Roland has all these new versions of it, but at the time it was out, it failed in the marketplace. But that doesn't always tell you the full story, right?
Yeah, that's so good. Did not know that, but that's absolutely spot on.
So if they had never put it out there, the whole hip hop genre, like with the way the 808s and 909s, it's integral to that version of that genre.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's books like that. There's movies like that. There's a lot of content that all of a sudden you can go back to 2019. You see it, you're like, oh yeah, this is good. Wait a minute.
The band Sunrise.
Yeah.
Like today's, everybody thinks Sunrise is just as big
Yes.
as Coltrane and just as big as Davis, as any of the great jazz outfits. But at the time, they were wearing like funkadelic space outfits in 56, 57, and people was like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
And they didn't like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then Funkadelic copied their space costumes, and in the 70s, wearing Afrocentric space psychedelic funk brothers was the thing.
It was the
But
thing.
in 57, it wasn't the thing.
It wasn't. Timing, the right strategy, the right resources, those have to like align. And it's like, there it is. Everything can be accomplished.
Yeah, and then sometimes people go back and like they find it. And now today, everybody recognizes like this is a great American jazz
love it
band that's considered to be just as vital as any other band. Right? And the genre and the canon. They're like in the canon. Everybody's like, these guys are just as canonized as anybody else. But like that can happen, and people have to understand. So that's why you should not just keep your demo tape in your closet,
right?
in your drawer, and
In there.
never put it out in the world. It's like, yeah, you should still
Yeah.
get it out there because
As one of the books I was thinking, I can't remember the author right now, but he was always about ship it, just ship it, just
yeah,
ship it. Doesn't matter. Just keep shipping. Um, and I think that's really important. You gotta keep shipping something. Keep testing out. Keep tinkering. Keep testing. Start shipping.
yeah, because it pushed forward. People are always looking for these kind of cookie cutter things,
Yeah.
and this is like where like we've got this like established like media, and then we have
Hmm.
this new media, which are like
Hmm.
the podcast, the
Hmm.
blogger, like the kind
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
kind of space we're in now. And
Yep.
people are like, don't like this scripted stuff, right? They rather go and see somebody being authentic,
Yep.
somebody kind of just putting it out there, than to see somebody doing some kind of infomercial, right?
Right.
They say, well, that doesn't resonate with the young people today. It's like they want somebody that feels that speaks to it. So they don't like going to the established old media. They
Hmm.
like going into the new media, and some people don't get it. So, well,
Yeah.
I've
They,
got to
they
still go the traditional route. It's like, well,
yeah.
that canon's old.
They
Nobody
want
cares
something
about
that feels like in real life, that IRL. They want something in real. It feels like it's in real life. It's in real time, as well. It doesn't feel scripted. It feels relatable. Um, they can see themselves in the moment, and or as a character in that story, or how it's affecting them. Absolutely, it makes sense.
So
That's
in
the
terms of like your experience, like with getting your message out
yeah.
through like the different vehicles of how you express your concepts of mindful life or mindful leadership, what's been your experience, today with the audience to deal with, or the different groups or different ages? There's a
Yeah.
certain like groups that you really hit with versus other groups, or you're trying to get out to everybody.
I was at one point I was trying to get it out to everyone, and now I realize it's not going to be for everyone. No, not everyone wants to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning. I realize that it's not a thing for everyone. They may do it for 40 days. They won't. They may not necessarily do it for the full year. And so for those as I was trying to kind of figure out like what's my message, um, still formulating that, but it really starts off with what we center our work around is rehumanizing the workplaces, um, at which people start to get soon as we show up. It's like this is what we're trying to do. We realize that it is you that is showing up. It is you that is showing up to these particular spaces, and so hey, don't forget, it's not necessarily just a new mask and a new function. Whomever you are, that habit, that personality, all of that is coming into this space. So when we're trying to get the word out, it's like who resonates with, hey, mindfulness is the prerequisite for leadership, right? Start using Instagram and seeing where that goes, and starting to do what I used to do, like the live contemplative mornings, and that went so far. But I found lately, I got started back writing. After I wrote the book, I was like, let me just get back. Let me go find some of my old, just random,
Journals.
thoughts, and journals, thoughts in some journals, and I just started putting that to paper, putting that on the internet. And so I started Braving Life, which is my blog, and it's basically on LinkedIn and a couple other places. But it's basically just, hey, this is how I'm seeing the world. And if
Hmm.
it resonates with you, hopefully it can help you. If it doesn't, send me some feedback because I want to have a conversation. And if people, and I didn't want just to be prescriptive and like, hey, this is what you need to do. I always try to end the blog with like, hey, let's have a conversation around this and how it can, if you find it to be, if you have a quibble, I love quibbles.
Yeah, that's
If
just
it feels like
interact.
if it
Yeah.
feels like it's resonating with you, let me know how you see it. Um, and that's been a big plus. I'm jumping on TikTok very, very soon.
That's a hard nut to get. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
on there,
testing it, but
but it's like my 25-year-old daughter, she kind of understands it, and it has its own kind of rhythm to it
for sure.
and quirkiness to it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
certain things like you try to put in that space, you have to kind of cut it, you have to
Hmm.
clip it, you have
Hmm.
to edit it to get it into that format.
Yeah.
to make it work. And usually
Yeah.
it's not like young people, they will create source material that fits that frame.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Older people we try to like cut, paste things to try to force it into the frame. And then people are like, well, that's cringy.
Yeah.
That's cringy. That doesn't work.
I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. I find even for my clients, most of our clients just recommend to another. We don't do a lot of marketing, truthfully in that sense. We figure out what our client base needs, and then they tell everyone else. And that's been a big plus. So that's how I market. I talk and listen to who I'm serving as much as I can, and seeing if I can anticipate they may need this soon, and start to work on it before they even realize they need it.
Well, that's cool to be like that kind of plugged in
Yeah.
until they kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that's the way things are today. Because people, you know, don't the life cycle of things is so quick. Today there's like you could be on some pattern, and then these algorithms suddenly shift, and it's like, oh, that pattern doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
And then it's like it
I
was
learned.
working for
Yes.
like 30 days, and now it's like dead. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to figure something else out.
I'm always curious. It's like when I see something on like a post about the algorithm changing, it's like, how does this person know that the algorithm, why they don't tell everyone that, hey, we don't like this anymore. We like we like reels instead of just posts. Now, oh no, we don't like posts anymore.
We don't like hashtags, like, with the new
hashtags are
AI,
no
right?
longer a thing.
They have the way AI works, it actually ignores the hashtag.
Yes.
It actually goes into the body and looks for the
And picks up
keywords
the
in the
keywords.
body. Yeah, so then people are still like, "I'm still looking on the hashtags." Boy, you're like
Yeah.
that's old news. That's not where it is. It's like
That's what we're dealing with. So I'm like, hey, somebody tell me can I get an update on a regular basis of what I need to do?
Well, it's like it's just the problem. It shifts itself, because some
Yeah.
of this stuff is like running on AI itself, and then it looks at patterns and it shifts patterns because patterns
Indeed.
are happening in real time,
Indeed.
and it's just going and it's actually emerging and remerging and rejiggering it like
Yeah, that
real
makes
time.
sense.
So then you're like, what the heck? It's like, why is it doing that? But it's like
Right.
like once you get the genie out the bottle, then it tends to go that way.
I'm hoping, I'm hoping something happens, but also I'm like, it's social media. I think people can find me in that space, and we don't want to continue to grow so quick that we can't provide the quality of service that we have been kind of known to do. So that's the other part of that too. So there's a part of that that's like, got to be careful, because I teach people not to be overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, you don't want to get so Some
So
people can get,
I have to practice that, in my team as well. So make
you
sure
don't
that
want to
we
be like
are,
juggling 3 companies at once.
we're growing slowly, steadily, and consistently. So that's the key.
Well, sustainable growth is the main thing I always tell people, but like that's the problem with the fad diet, with the
Yep.
fad 10-step thing, or the fad this and that, is it
Yep.
tends to be like you might be able to do that for a month. You might be able to do that, for
And
10 days.
you're
But
gonna yo-yo right back up.
can you do that for the rest of your life? Or like, is
Yeah.
that something that you could actually integrate,
Yep.
and it's not something that becomes like automatic? Or it's so convoluted or so stressful or so hard, there's no way you could sustain that. And that's the first kind of hint. That ain't gonna work.
That's why when I used to be a personal trainer too, and I would tell, we would talk about meal planning and just go ahead and pre-planning our meals out and having to go through the process. But I also reminded them, hey, this is like a way of kind of jump starting your particular goals, because you can imagine trying to meal prep for 40 years, right? Right.
Really
Some folks can't do it for 3 months.
Can you
do you really want to live like a competitive bodybuilder for the rest of your life? Counting your macros for the rest? No. So you have to start thinking about what are the patterns, what are the things I know. I'm like, okay, I just had this. I probably don't need to have this thing over here. I need to make sure and just be mindful of what I'm eating on a regular basis. Slow
Yeah.
down, as a matter of fact.
Well, yeah, I think it's like
Slow your
balance,
eating down.
right? Because a lot of times
Oh,
people, they got, your human beings are like have multiple pillars.
yes,
People
yes.
will tend to work like, I'll work on the ab pillar,
Hmm.
right? I'll work on
Hmm.
getting my abs, but then they
Right.
didn't take care of the mental state.
Yep.
They didn't take care of the diet.
Yep.
They didn't take care of like their soul and their heart. So like it's,
Hmm.
then they look in the mirror and it's like they could have the abs, but they don't feel good.
Hmm.
Well, because you're not getting any sleep.
Yep.
You're eating supplements to get this body, but that's not good nutrition. You're
Hmm.
doing one thing for this thing, and it's like you're doing too much. You're
Yep.
doing extreme behavior is
Yep.
not balanced.
Yep.
It's not sustainable. It's probably not
Hmm.
good for your health. It's probably not good for
Hmm.
your heart. It's not good for a lot of things. So then like you're out of whack.
Yep. So like when folks have adverse effects to taking testosterone or TRT.
Yeah.
When folks are taking andro back in the day, and you start to see these hives move on their body. I had a number of at my gym, we had a number of folks that were competitive or wanted to be competitive, and you could see, you could see some other
Symptoms. Yeah.
adverse results. And then talking to one, I remember one of my fellow trainers, he's like, my kidneys are shot. Yes,
Well, you
because think
go to
about
the extreme, you got one thing, it looks good,
yeah,
but the inside's not good.
inside's
Right?
not good, right?
So,
That's
like, the
that's a
outward
that's a
is not the
lesson in
only thing.
itself, right?
It's not the only thing. It's like the outward show you have isn't
Yeah,
gonna get you to 80. It ain't gonna
yep,
get you to 90. You barely get to 30. It's like, what are you
yep.
gonna do?
It's and that's like I say, that's a lesson in itself of trying to beautify, and make sure and scope uh, this outward appearance, and the inside is not showing
Yeah.
up in the right way. It's not as healthy as it needs to be. And that gets people in a lot of trouble. And again, everything comes out. We live from the inside out. So
Yeah.
all that nasty, all of that, those areas that are not healthy for you, it's going to show up in some particular way for you in some other way
And
in your
just the
life.
mindset in terms of, limited beliefs, like you have these self-limiting beliefs
Hmm.
that it can tend to get you to be, like, compartmentalized into these
Yes.
little niches.
Yeah.
And, what I find, in music, like, I'm cross genre.
Hmm.
Right, and I run into some purist musicians, like, all I do is blues, all I do is rock, all I do is this, all I do is that. I'm like, I find it boring because I like to cross genre, right? And cross genre means that you're gonna mix a little hip hop with some rock, with some
I,
jazz, with some
yes.
classical, with whatever. And if you
Yeah.
do that, then something else happens, right? And then it becomes more interesting, not boring. To me, it's
Right.
like you stay in that same genre, that's fine. You just keep on doing pentatonic scale all day. It's like, okay,
Yep.
I know you got it. Like, cool, you got it.
I think about as you're saying that, I think about well, wait a minute, maybe you don't maybe. And so when people say that, I was like, maybe you don't understand music and where it came. So you talk, like, I only do blues. Okay, what is the blues? Where the blues derive from? Right? We understand it comes from hymns with, right? And so you start to what did hip hop come from? Right? Most of our genres
Funk
are coming
comes in
from these,
multiple things. Hip hop is so
right?
diverse now because it has so many sources.
So many sources, so many influences, right? But it all is happening at these connection points. It's not just coming off of one stream. It's like, oh, this is what this is, right? Even if we listen to classical music, you start to notice where it's coming from,
Yeah,
right? And
different veins of
how it
it. Yeah,
influenced, and how the Persians actually did,
do it first. Other people
Persian
like
influence,
Chinese
and
classical music versus like
absolutely, it's like,
Western or
oh wow,
Japanese classical type of music
you could
versus
see it,
Western influence.
yeah,
African classical structures versus like it's so many different structures, indigenous. And
yes,
going into like listening to Cherokee
hmm,
chants,
yep,
listen to Blackfoot and you know
hmm, hmm,
Iroquois. You find all these different styles, and the people who are more adventurous, they'll look everywhere. They'll look
Yes.
everywhere for something. And you see people going out to Africa, they go to India, they go to
Mhm.
Middle East, they're looking for
Yeah.
things. Because well, it's like this scale is boring. And I can know it.
Right.
And
What
I
else is
know
out
it.
here?
I know it.
What
I
is
know these I can do it, but it's like
Yeah.
that's not kicking. See, but a lot of people will go to the east
Yes.
or they'll go somewhere deep or
Yes.
they'll go to Africa to go pick up something,
Yep.
and it's like, hey, I want world music. Because
Yeah.
these beats, it's like I'm sick of doing these rock beats,
Yes.
or these blues beats. It's like I want world beats. I want something else.
I just had a thought when you said go to Africa too. Uh, and I hope people don't counsel me for this, but I want you to take a look at Picasso's work before his trip to Africa,
Hmm.
and then go back and look at his what's his
Okay,
pride,
what's
what
his
people
take on it?
really think is really popular now. And then I want you to then I want you to look at his more modern stuff, his post African trip, and then see if you see any similarities. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
That's all-
that's what you find. These
that's what
people
you'll
that
see.
that's what people do. You go
Yeah.
look at people, like Led Zeppelin. They were going on. They was taking Robert Johnson
Oh
and
man.
Lead Belly,
Hmm.
like and acting like unlike the Stones, they didn't credit. Like the Stones, as Keith
At least
Richards
gave
had respect,
yes.
he gave credit to where if he lifted something, he'd actually say where it came from.
Hmm.
But Zeppelin acted like, well, we didn't take that Robert Johnson song. Well, you didn't? How come
Mm.
it sounds like note for note for the same thing?
Wow.
Like, you gotta have people that at least have some respect. It's like
Right.
where they get it. But that's another story. But
Good man. Yeah.
but in terms of what you're doing with thinkforgood.org, what can people find there, and what are your future plans?
So basically, you'll find a little bit about me as the leader of the troop. Some information on basically what our frameworks work. I mean, how our frameworks are applied to organization as well as leadership. We talk and the way we coach. We coach in. You talked about balance. We use the term harmony. So how do you in all 7 life domains? All of those need to work together. Now some may be louder, just like with any as we think about music, some elements may be a little bit louder depending on the part of the song that you're in, or the part, in this case, the timing of your life, right? And so whether it be socially, financially, would it be where you are spiritually, we coach in all those areas. And so you'll find some information on how to get in contact with us with that. We talk about how you can move with more moxie or more courage. How do you move with the proper mindset? How do you move mindfully? How do you move with mettle or resilience as well? How do you move with a sense of meaning, or with the sense of mission? And how do how does that affect every single thing in your life? Not only you, but also how it affects others. And so they'll see some things like that on our website. They can, if they do a Google of anything that we're doing, or at least my name, you'll see, maybe some podcasts, maybe some writings, and how I think when it comes down to professional development, how I think when it comes down to personal growth and leadership. Um, and then if they will look a little closer, they'll find the book, The Contemplative Morning, which is my first book, because folks are like, hey, we need at least another 100 days off of this. I have folks that have read it the 40 days, and they say they still read it because they get something new from it
Mhm.
every single time they read it. And so I love that. Love to hear it.
Well, I want to thank you for being here and let people know
Oh,
that
man. Thank you.
thinkforgood.org is fully clickable in the podcast description on the platforms that we are distributing on. We're just live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube,
Love
and
it.
we'll be on all the other platforms that you can listen to or watch a podcast by tomorrow. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Man, thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you.